I didn't win the lottery and start acting wild. I didn't buy a Lamborghini. I didn't quit my job in a blaze of glory. I didn't post a photo of a check on Facebook. I bought a ticket on a Tuesday, same as I always did, same gas station, same bored cashier who never looked up. And by Thursday night, I was sitting on my sister's couch, holding a manila folder, while my own mother looked me in the eye and said, "You're not fit to manage that kind of money, silly girl." And a week later, a judge read their words out loud in open court, word for word, until even their lawyers stopped breathing. If you like emotionally honest betrayal stories with calm, procedural payback, take 1 second to like this video and subscribe. And if you've ever had family treat you like a wallet instead of a person, stay with me. Because what they tried to do to me after I won the lottery was so calculated, I still get cold thinking about it. My name is Rachel Miller. I'm 44 years old. I've paid my own bills since I was 19. I've never missed a mortgage payment. I'm the one they call when their lives fall apart. And here's what kills me. By the time we walked into court, my attorney had a spreadsheet proving I'd already given them more than 70 grand over the last 8 years. They didn't love me. They loved access. I have a credit score that's never embarrassed me. A job I've kept for 15 years. A life I've built without asking any of them for a dime. And my mother still called me a silly girl like I was 12 and had dropped a plate. My brother leaned back like he owned the room and said, "We're gonna handle it for you. You're useless with money. You always have been." Then he smiled, like he'd just offered to carry my groceries. That was the first time I felt it. That slow, crawling realization. They weren't excited for me. They were excited about me. Like I was a vault that had suddenly unlocked. Before I tell you how they tried to take it, I need you to understand who I was in my family. I was the responsible one, the quiet one, the one who didn't make a scene. My brother, Todd, was the loud one, the funny one, the golden boy. He was also 47 years old and had never paid a bill on time in his life. My sister, Gina, was 45 and had a talent for turning her bad decisions into other people's emergencies. My mother was 73 and had spent the last decade mastering a very specific skill, making you feel selfish for saying no. And me, I was the one who said yes, over and over, until it became my identity. When Todd got his truck repossessed, I co-signed the new one. When Gina had a short month with rent, I covered it. When my mother needed just a little help with her property taxes, I wired the money before she finished the sentence. I told myself it was love. Now I know it was training. The week I won, I didn't even tell them at first. I sat at my kitchen table with my phone in my hand and the lottery app open. My heart pounding like it wanted out of my chest. I scanned the ticket. I checked the numbers twice. Then I checked the official site again, like I was daring it to change its mind. 84 million. Not 8,000. Not 84,000. $84 million. I checked it so many times I started to feel dizzy. Like maybe if I blinked, it would vanish. Like it wasn't mine yet until someone official said it out loud. I went to work the next day. I answered emails. I smiled at people. I made coffee. I did everything like normal because I couldn't risk cracking open in public. But I wasn't normal inside. Inside, I was a woman standing at the edge of a new life, a life where I could breathe. And then the thought came. My family. Not my friends. Not my coworkers. Not the internet. My family. I told myself I should tell them. I told myself they'd be happy. I told myself I deserved one moment where my mother hugged me and meant it. So Thursday night, I went to my sister's house. I brought nothing. No champagne. No big announcement. Just a folder with a printout of the confirmation and a screenshot from the official site. The real ticket never left my safe deposit box. Gina opened the door and did that bright fake smile she saved for anyone who might be useful. "Hey, what's this about?" she said, already scanning me like she could smell money. Todd was there too. Of course he was. He always was. Like he lived in a permanent state of just stopping by anywhere that had a fridge. My mother sat in the armchair like a judge, hands folded, expression neutral. I should have walked out right then. Instead, I sat down and said, I need to tell you something, and I'm telling you because I trust you. That line makes me laugh now. Not a funny laugh. The kind that comes from realizing you were naive in a way that could have ruined you. I opened the folder. I slid the printout across the coffee table. And I said, I won. Gina grabbed the paper like it was a winning scratch-off and she could still claim it if she touched it first. Todd leaned in, eyes wide. He made this low whistle and said, no way. My mother didn't smile. She didn't say congratulations. She didn't even blink. She just looked at the number and said, how much is that after taxes? I said, that's not the point. Todd laughed. That's exactly the point. I tried to keep it light. I said, I haven't even claimed it yet. I'm gonna do it the right way, quietly. I'm hiring a lawyer, a financial planner. I'm not doing anything reckless. Gina handed the paper back like it was dirty and said, good, because you are impulsive. You always have been. I stared at her. Impulsive? Todd nodded like he was agreeing with a teacher. Yeah, you get emotional. You make dumb choices. No offense. Then my mother finally spoke, calm as anything. Honey, you were never good with money. You're responsible with bills because you're scared. That's not the same as being smart. I felt my face go hot. I said, I'm the only one in this room who's never needed a bailout. Todd's grin tightened. Don't get cute. My mother leaned forward, voice soft, like she was comforting a child. You're a good girl. You mean well, but money like that makes people crazy. And you're not strong like that. Gina jumped in fast, like she'd been waiting for her cue. We need to protect you from yourself. You'll blow it, or you'll give it away, or you'll get scammed. You're too trusting. Todd snapped his fingers and said, exactly. You're the kind of person who'd hand out checks like Oprah and then end up broke. And then who do you come crying to? Us. I actually laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. Me. Crying to you. Todd pointed at me like I'd proven his point. See, emotional, defensive, that's why you can't handle it. And then came the moment that turned my stomach. My brother looked at my mother and said, tell her. My mother sighed, like she'd been burdened with a duty. We've already spoken to someone, she said. I blinked. Spoken to who? A lawyer, Gina said, too quick, too proud. Todd added, it's not a big deal, it's just paperwork. I felt my hands go cold. What paperwork? My mother said it like she was ordering groceries. Guardianship, conservatorship, something like that. It means Todd can manage the money and make sure you don't do anything irresponsible. I sat there, breathing, trying to hear her properly. You're trying to declare me unfit, I said. Gina rolled her eyes. Oh my God, don't be dramatic. Todd shrugged. It's not unfit, it's protected, like training wheels. My mother's voice went sharper and the sweetness fell off. Don't be greedy. You didn't earn that money. You got lucky, and luck doesn't mean you get to become a Scrooge. There it was. Scrooge. Like I was already withholding something. I said very slowly, I haven't even claimed it yet. Todd leaned forward and his voice dropped into something uglier. You're not about to sit there and act like you're better than us because you found a stupid ticket. We're your family. We're owed, and if you want to play greedy pig, we can play hardball. My mother didn't flinch at the words. She didn't correct him. She nodded. Don't make this ugly, she said. Be a good daughter. I looked at each of them. My sister, who'd borrowed $5,000 from me last year and still hadn't paid back a cent. My brother, who had once screamed at me in my driveway because I wouldn't co-sign a loan for his girlfriend. My mother, who could cry on command but hadn't once asked how I was doing after my divorce 3 years ago. And I realized something so clear it felt like a bell going off in my chest. They didn't see me as a person. They saw me as a process, a gate they needed to get through, and they were already trying to go around me. Right then, right there, that was the first major betrayal. So I'm gonna ask you something. If you've ever had family look you in the eye and talk about your life like it belonged to them, I want you to comment, even if it's just one word. Yup, or same. Because I swear, reading those comments makes people feel less alone. I stood up. I picked up my folder. I said, "You're not getting anything from me." Gina's face twisted. "Wow. So this is who you are now?" Todd smirked. "There she is. Mrs. 84 million, acting like we're strangers." My mother stood too, and her voice went low and mean. "You were never pretty. You were never fun. The only thing you had was being dependable, and now you want to take that away too." That one landed. That one was personal, and it was intentional. I looked at her and said, "I'm leaving." She stepped closer and hissed, "You won't be leaving with that ticket if you're smart." Todd laughed like it was a joke. But it wasn't. I walked out anyway, and I drove home with my hands shaking so hard I had to pull over once to breathe. The next morning, I woke up to a notification on my doorbell camera. A man in a gray suit standing on my porch, holding an envelope. I opened the door and he said, "Ma'am, are you Rachel Miller?" I said yes. He handed it to me and said, "You've been served." And then he walked away like he'd just delivered a pizza. I shut the door and stared at the papers. Petition for emergency guardianship. My mother's name. My brother's name. My sister's name. Claims that I was unstable. Impulsive. At risk of being exploited. It said I was prone to irrational decision-making. It said I had a history of emotional volatility. It said I was not capable of managing sudden wealth. It was typed, polished, confident. They even listed my divorce and the therapy I did afterward like it was proof I was unstable. Like getting help made me unfit. My phone started ringing before I even finished reading it. Todd. I didn't answer. Gina. I didn't answer. My mother. I didn't answer. Then Todd texted, "Don't be stupid. We're trying to help." Then another, "Sign the agreement and stop acting like a victim." Then another, "You're gonna lose this in court. You're not smart enough to fight it." Then one more, "Stop being a greedy pig. You owe us, and you know it." I sat on my couch, the papers spread out in front of me, and I realized something else. They weren't scared. They were confident, which meant they thought they had a path, a real one. And that meant I needed to stop reacting like a hurt daughter and start acting like someone protecting her life. So I made one call. Not to my family, to an attorney. Her name was Denise Harper. 61 years old. Calm voice. Eyes like she'd seen every trick in the book and wasn't impressed. I walked into her office with the petition in my hands and said, "They're trying to put me under guardianship because I won the lottery." Denise didn't gasp. She didn't laugh. She didn't look shocked. She just nodded like she'd been expecting it. "Sit," she said, "and tell me everything, slowly." So I did. I told her about the Thursday night meeting, the insults, the silly girl, the useless with money, the Scrooge, the greedy pig. Denise's expression didn't change, but her jaw tightened once when I repeated what my mother said about me not being pretty. When I finished, Denise leaned back and said, "They filed for emergency guardianship because they wanted speed. They wanted you scared. They wanted you to sign something fast." I swallowed. "Can they win?" Denise looked me dead in the eye. "Not if you do what I tell you." Then she slid a yellow legal pad toward me and said, "We're gonna build a case that makes the judge angry." I blinked. "Angry?" Denise's mouth tilted. Judges don't like families abusing the court system to steal money, and that's what this is. Theft dressed up as concern. That was the first time my chest loosened. Just a little. Denise told me to do 3 things. 1. Stop talking to them. 2. Save everything. Every text, every voicemail, every email. 3. Let them keep talking. "People like this," she said, "they can't help themselves. They start confessing when they think they're winning." I did exactly that. Todd texted me like it was his job. He sent screenshots of articles about lottery winners going broke. He said, "This is you. You're gonna be the idiot on the news." Gina sent voice notes. Long ones. Her voice syrupy and cruel. "Rach, I love you, but you're honestly not stable. You cry over everything. You've always been fragile. You need us. You're gonna embarrass yourself if you try to do this alone. My mother went full martyr. You're breaking my heart. After all I've done, I raised you, I sacrificed, and now you can't even share. God sees you. God sees greedy. And then came the first public smear. A cousin messaged me on Facebook. Hey, your mom says you're not well. Are you okay? Not well. That phrase is poison. It sounds like care. It feels like concern. But it's an accusation that makes everyone step back. Within 2 days, it spread. An old friend from high school texted, "You okay? Heard something weird." A coworker looked at me in the break room and said, "Everything all right at home?" I hadn't told anyone at work I'd won. I hadn't told anyone anything. My family was building a story where I was unstable. So when the court took control, everyone would nod like it made sense. Denise asked me, "Do you have any history of treatment that could be twisted?" I said, "I went to therapy after my divorce." Denise nodded. "They'll use that." I felt sick. Therapy isn't even a bad thing. Denise's eyes hardened. In a courtroom, bad people weaponize anything. That's why we control the narrative. Then the smear stopped being online and started being real life. It was a Monday morning. I was at my desk halfway through my coffee, trying to pretend my phone wasn't a landmine. And my supervisor messaged me, "Can you come to my office?" Now, my stomach dropped. I walked in and HR was sitting there with that polite, careful face people wear when they're about to say something that will change your day. My supervisor cleared his throat and said, "Rachel, we received a call from a family member who said they're concerned about your mental health." My hands went cold. HR said, "They claimed you're having a breakdown. They said you're under legal proceedings. We just need to check in and make sure you're okay, and that you're safe at work." I sat there staring. Because my mother had never once cared about my safety when I was crying on my kitchen floor after my divorce. But now she was calling my workplace. Now she was trying to put a question mark next to my name. I said, "I'm fine." HR tilted her head. "Do you feel threatened by your family?" I almost laughed. I didn't. I just said yes. And that's when my supervisor's eyes changed. Not pity. Recognition. Like he finally understood what this was. I walked out of that office with my face calm and my body buzzing like electricity. And I thought at the time that being served those papers was the worst thing that would happen. I was wrong. That's when Denise introduced me to the other person who would change everything. Judge Malcolm Avery, retired, 72, former family court judge for decades. A man who still moved like he was in charge of every room he entered. He wasn't a friend. He was Denise's mentor, someone she trusted. He didn't represent me. He didn't appear in court as my lawyer, but he coached Denise, quietly, strategically, like a chess player. He met me once in Denise's office. He looked at me and said, "Your family made a mistake." I swallowed. "What mistake? They put their greed in writing," he said, "and they tried to use my former court like a weapon. Judges don't like that." Then he leaned forward and said something I will never forget. "You're going to let them think you're scared. You're going to let them talk. Then you're going to let the court hear their own words." I nodded, but my stomach still churned. Because it wasn't just about winning a case. It was about seeing my own mother in front of a judge. It was about hearing my sister call me unstable in a courtroom. It was about watching my brother pretend he loved me while trying to control me. And for a few nights, I didn't sleep. A week later, Todd showed up at my bank. I only know because the bank manager called me. "Rachel," she said carefully, "your brother is here asking to speak to someone about your accounts." My skin went cold. "I don't have any accounts with winnings yet," I said. "I know," she said. "He's asking about your existing accounts. He says you're not competent. He says he has legal action pending." I felt my throat tighten. "What did you tell him?" "I told him we can't discuss your accounts with anyone," she said. "But I wanted you to know. He's very persistent." Persistent. That was one word for it. Denise called it what it was. "Unauthorized attempt to access your finances," she said. It shows intent. Todd texted me right after. I talked to the bank. They know what's coming. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Then another. You're embarrassing yourself. Everyone knows you can't handle money. You're a nervous little mess. Then another. You want to end up alone? Fine. Be a Scrooge. Just remember who'll be there when you screw up. Denise told me, don't respond. So I didn't. But I saved it. I saved everything. Then Gina escalated. She posted on Facebook. I didn't even follow her anymore. But someone sent me a screenshot. It said, pray for my sister. Sudden wealth is exposing a lot. We're trying to help her get the support she needs. Please don't judge her. Support. Needs. It made my teeth ache with rage. Because she wasn't praying for me. She was priming witnesses. Then my mother called my ex-husband. Yes, my ex-husband. He texted me like he didn't want to. Hey, your mom called. She's saying you're having a breakdown. Should I be worried? I stared at that message until my vision blurred. My mother had never called my ex-husband to check on me when we were divorcing. But she called him now. Because now I was money. Denise's plan was still the same. Let them talk. Then Todd made it uglier. He left a voicemail. He didn't know Denise had told me to route everything to a saved folder. His voice was cheerful at first. Hey sis, just checking in. We're doing this because we love you. Then his tone shifted. Harder. Sharper. If you don't sign over control, we're gonna tell the court about you. About how you get. About how you fall apart. About how you're not right. And we'll win, because people believe us. Not you. He paused, like he was smiling. And when we win, you'll get an allowance, like a child. That's what you are. A child with a lottery ticket. Then he laughed, and hung up. I sat on my kitchen floor after that one. Not crying, not screaming, just sitting. Because something inside me finally snapped clean. Not into rage, into clarity. He wasn't my brother in that voicemail. He was my enemy. Then came the move that made my hands go numb. Denise called me early one morning and said, Rachel, don't panic, but they filed something else. My stomach dropped. What? An ex parte request, she said. They're asking for an emergency temporary order. They're claiming you're a danger to yourself financially. They're asking for the court to appoint Todd as temporary guardian until the hearing. I couldn't speak for a second. Because this wasn't about proving me unfit later. This was them trying to get their hands on the wheel now. I finally said, can they do that? Denise's voice stayed level. They can ask. And the fact that they asked tells the judge exactly who they are. But listen to me. This is why we don't talk to them. This is why we document. This is why we stay calm. I swallowed hard. What happens next? I'm filing our response today, she said. And I'm attaching the voicemail. The texts, the HR contact, the bank inquiry. We're not just defending, we're showing pattern. I sat there, staring at my kitchen wall, feeling like the floor had shifted under my life. Because I hadn't even claimed the money. And they were already trying to take rights I didn't even know could be taken. Denise called again that afternoon. They didn't get it, she said. I exhaled so hard my chest hurt. They didn't get the temporary order, she continued. But the judge scheduled the hearing sooner, and he asked for copies of their communications. I closed my eyes, because I knew what that meant. He was already looking at them sideways. The hearing was set for a Tuesday morning. Denise told me to dress like myself. Not rich, not flashy, not scared. I wore navy slacks, a cream blouse, and a small gold necklace my father gave me before he died. The only person in my family who ever treated me like I mattered. Denise met me outside the courthouse. She said, they're going to try to rattle you. They'll say you're emotional. So don't give them emotion. Give them facts. I nodded. My hands still shook a little, but I kept them clasped. Inside the courtroom, my family was already there. Todd wore a suit like he was running for office. Gina wore a tight blouse and a smug expression that made my stomach flip. My mother wore black like it was a funeral. When she saw me, she didn't look relieved. She looked offended, like I'd shown up to ruin her plan. Todd's lawyer approached Denise and said, "We have a proposal." Denise said, "We're not negotiating." The lawyer smiled thinly. "Your client is making this harder than it needs to be." Todd leaned toward me and whispered, loud enough for Gina to hear, "Don't worry. After today, you'll calm down. They'll put you in your place." Gina snorted. "She needs it." My mother looked at the ceiling like she was asking God for patience. Then she turned and said, "Rachel, stop being stubborn. You're not a strong woman. You're a scared woman. You always have been." Denise placed a hand lightly on my elbow, a silent reminder. "Facts. Calm. Receipts." The judge entered. Not Judge Avery. He was retired. This was Judge Kendall Rhodes. Mid-50s. Sharp eyes. The kind of face that didn't tolerate nonsense. "Be seated," he said. My family's lawyer stood first. He painted a picture. A loving family concerned about a vulnerable woman. He said I was at risk of exploitation, that sudden wealth could trigger irrational behavior, that my family was stepping in out of love. He used words like safety and protection and support. Then he said, "We're asking the court to grant temporary guardianship to the petitioner, Mr. Todd Miller, until the respondent can demonstrate stability." Todd sat there like a hero. My mother dabbed her eyes. Gina looked at me like I was a stray dog that had wandered into their nice house. Then Denise stood. "Your Honor," she said, "this petition is not about safety, it's about control, it's about money, and we can prove that." She handed the clerk a file. Thick, organized. "Exhibit A through H," she said. The judge's eyes flicked to the stack. Todd's lawyer shifted. Denise continued. "First, the respondent has no history of financial mismanagement. She has maintained steady employment, paid taxes, paid her mortgage. She has no criminal record, no substance abuse, no medical diagnosis that would impair competency." Todd's lawyer stood. "Objection. Relevance." The judge said, "Overruled. This is relevant." Denise nodded once and kept going. "Second, the petitioners began a campaign of coercion immediately after learning of the respondent's lottery win. They used insults, threats, and misinformation to pressure her to sign over control. When she refused, they filed this petition. They also filed an ex parte request for temporary control." The judge's eyes lifted. "They did." Denise said, "Yes, Your Honor." Todd's lawyer opened his mouth. The judge held up a hand. "No, continue." The judge looked at Todd. "Mr. Miller, is that true?" Todd smiled like he was charming. "Your Honor, my sister's always been dramatic." Denise said, "If I may, Your Honor, I'd like to play a voicemail." Todd's head snapped toward her. Gina's smile tightened. My mother's face went still. Denise pressed play. Todd's voice filled the courtroom. It started sweet, then it turned. "If you don't sign over control, we're going to tell the court about you. About how you get, about how you fall apart, about how you're not right, and we'll win." Then the laugh. Then the line that made the courtroom feel colder. "And when we win, you'll get an allowance, like a child." The judge's eyes lifted slowly. He looked straight at Todd. Todd's face was red now. Not embarrassed, angry. He stood up and said, "That was taken out of context." The judge held up a hand. "Sit down." Todd sat, hard. Denise didn't pause. "Now," she said, "I'd like to present text messages." She handed copies to the clerk. The judge read silently for a moment. Then he looked up and said, "Ms. Miller, did you send these messages?" Gina blinked. "I don't know what you're talking about." Denise said, "They're from her number, Your Honor." The judge read aloud. "You're embarrassing yourself. Everyone knows you can't handle money. You're a nervous little mess." Gina's throat worked like she swallowed something sharp. The judge continued, "Stop being a greedy pig. You owe us." A murmur moved through the courtroom. Not loud, but there. The judge looked toward my mother. "Mrs. Miller," he said, "did you send this message?" My mother's lips parted. I don't text." Denise said, "Your Honor, these next messages are from Mrs. Miller's phone to the respondent." The judge read, "Don't be greedy. You didn't earn that money. You got lucky, be a good daughter. Then another. Gott ist ready. My mother's face twisted like she wanted to cry, but nothing came out. Denise said, Your Honor, I also have evidence the petitioners contacted the respondent's workplace with claims of instability. Todd's lawyer stood. Objection. The judge's voice stayed calm. Overruled. This goes to motive. Denise handed the clerk a statement. HR contact log. Dates. The judge scanned it. Then he looked up and said, So you tried to damage her employment. Todd's lawyer tried to speak again. The judge cut him off. Counsel, I am listening to them call her a greedy pig in writing, and now I'm seeing workplace interference. Sit. Silence. The judge looked at Todd again. Mr. Miller, do you understand what guardianship is? Todd cleared his throat. It's protection. The judge said, It is a legal removal of rights. He turned pages. And then Denise did the thing that made this case. She didn't just show cruelty. She showed motive. She said, Your Honor, the petitioners also attempted to access the respondent's bank information without authorization. She submitted the bank manager's statement. She submitted the call log. She submitted Todd's text right after. The judge read it. Then he looked up and said, That is not concern. That is preparation. Todd's jaw tightened. He muttered, This is bullshit. The judge's head snapped toward him. Mr. Miller, he said, One more outburst and I will hold you in contempt. Todd shut his mouth. Gina whispered, Oh my God, like she was the victim. Then Denise delivered the line that made it impossible for the judge to ignore. Your Honor, this family is not asking for help. They are asking for permission to steal. Todd stood up so fast his chair scraped. He pointed across the room at me and said, She's a selfish little brat. She always has been. She never deserved that money. She's the kind of person who'd let her own mother die broke just to feel powerful. That moment was pure hate, and it wasn't for the judge. It was for me, because he couldn't charm me anymore. The judge's voice cut through the room like a blade. Sit down. Todd sat, chest heaving. My mother started to cry then. Loud, sudden, the kind of crying meant to distract. She turned toward the judge and sobbed. She's always been cold. She never loved us right. She's greedy. She's a Scrooge. She wants to punish us for needing her. And then she looked directly at me and screamed, You were never even worth raising. You were a burden. And now you think you're somebody. The courtroom went still. Even the clerk froze. The judge stared at my mother for a long second. Then he said quietly, Mrs. Miller, you will stop speaking, right now. My mother kept crying, but she stopped. The judge turned to Denise. Ms. Harper, he said, anything further? Denise nodded. Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to submit one final exhibit, a breakdown of financial support the respondent has provided to the petitioners over the last 8 years. She handed the judge a spreadsheet. Clear. Itemized. Dates. Amounts. The judge scanned it. Then he read one line out loud. $36,000 in emergency payments to Mr. Todd Miller. Todd's face went pale. The judge read another. $22,000 in rent assistance to Ms. Gina Miller. Gina's eyes flashed. That's not even. The judge raised his hand. No. Then he looked at my mother. $14,000 in property tax support and home repairs. My mother's crying slowed. Her face changed, because now the story was wrong. Now the court could see who had been supporting who. The judge set the paper down and said, So the respondent has been financially stable enough to support all of you for years. But the moment she gets money you want, you decide she's incompetent. Todd's lawyer tried again. Your Honor, emotions are high. Families. The judge cut him off. Counsel, do not insult this court by pretending this is normal. He looked at the petition. He looked at my family. Then he said, The emergency petition is denied. Todd's head jerked up. The judge continued, And I am dismissing this case with prejudice. Gina's mouth fell open. My mother whispered, No. The judge's voice stayed calm, but his words were brutal. This was an abuse of the court system. This was an attempt to remove an adult woman's rights for financial gain. Then he looked directly at Todd. And I am ordering the petitioners to pay the respondents' legal fees. Todd's lawyer leaned in and whispered something frantic. Gina started shaking her head like she could undo it. My mother let out a sound that wasn't even a cry anymore. It was a wounded animal sound. The judge wasn't done. He said, I am also issuing a warning. Any further attempts to harass the respondent, access her financial information, contact her workplace, or file frivolous petitions will be referred for sanctions. He looked at my mother again. Mrs. Miller, he said, do you understand me? My mother nodded, wiping her face like she was offended by her own tears. Todd stood up, but the judge's eyes stopped him before he could speak. This hearing is concluded, the judge said. And just like that, it was over. No dramatic music, no shouting victory, just a judge, a file, and a decision that stripped my family of their fantasy. Outside the courtroom, Gina rushed toward me. Her face was red, her voice was sharp. This is what you wanted, she hissed. To humiliate us, you did this. You're evil. I looked at her and said, you filed to take my rights. She scoffed. Oh my God, you're such a victim, you always have been. Todd came up behind her and said, you think you won. You didn't win. You just proved you're exactly who I said you were. A greedy little pig who'd rather burn her own family than share. Denise stepped between us. Todd leaned around her and said, you're gonna be alone. You hear me, alone. No one's gonna love you when they know what you are. My mother didn't come close. She stood back like she was staging a photo. Then she said, loud enough for people to hear, I hope that money keeps you warm at night, because you'll have nothing else. And then she turned and walked away like she'd been wronged. Denise didn't chase them. She didn't argue. She just looked at me and said, you did good. You stayed calm. I swallowed and said, it doesn't feel good. Denise nodded once. It will. The next part wasn't court. It was consequences. Because my family didn't just lose a case. They lost access. I changed my phone number. Not dramatically. Quietly. I told my bank to flag any inquiries. I locked down my credit. And I didn't even claim the money until Denise had everything locked down and insulated, because after what they tried, I wasn't taking chances. I filed to claim my winnings through a legal entity Denise set up, not because I was hiding, because I was protecting. And then I did something that felt like cutting a cord. I stopped paying for them. Within a month, Todd's truck got repossessed again. This time I didn't rescue him. He called from a blocked number. Voicemail. Rachel, don't be like this. You're being petty. You're being a Scrooge. I made a mistake, but you can fix this. I deleted it. Gina showed up at my job. Yes, at my job. She waited in the parking lot like a teenager. When I walked out, she stepped in front of my car and said, we need to talk. I said, move. She didn't. She said, you're really gonna do this. You're really gonna act like you're better than us because you got lucky. I said, I'm acting like someone who doesn't want to be stolen from. She laughed, sharp. Stolen from, she repeated. Oh, please. You wouldn't even know what to do with that money. You'll blow it. You'll end up broke. And then you'll come crawling back, crying, like you always do. I leaned out my window and said, Gina, get away from my car. Her face twisted. You were never even the pretty sister, she spat. You were just the boring one. The one Mom felt sorry for. And now you think you're some queen. I looked at her for a long second. Then I said, if you don't move, I'm calling the police. She froze. Not because she was scared of the police. Because she realized I meant it. She stepped back, and I drove away. That was the shift, not in them. In me. A week later, my cousin called. Not a text. A call. She said, Rachel, I need to tell you something. I braced myself. She said, your mom's been telling people you had a breakdown and the court took over. She's saying Todd saved you. I laughed. A real laugh this time. Because of course she was. She couldn't let the truth exist without trying to repaint it. So I did something I never would have done before. I told the truth. Not online. Not messy. Just truth. I said, there was a hearing. The judge dismissed their petition as abusive. He ordered them to pay my legal fees. I have the court order. Silence on the line. Then my cousin said, "Oh my God." And that's how it spread back. Not as gossip, as correction. Denise told me something important. Bad people rely on your silence, she said. They count on you being too polite to say what happened. So I stopped being polite about facts. When someone asked if I was okay, I said, "I'm great." My family tried to put me under guardianship for money, and the judge shut it down. And you know what happens when you say it out loud like that? People stop asking gently. They start judging the right people. My mother lost her church friend group in a month. Not because church people are saints. Because church people hate being associated with public shame. One woman apparently said, "That's not prayer, that's predatory." And suddenly my mother's invitations dried up. Gina's boyfriend left her. That part shocked even me. But it made sense. Because when someone is willing to call their own sister incompetent in court, you start wondering what they'd do to you. Todd tried to do damage control at first. He posted some vague status about family betrayal and snakes. Then someone commented, "Didn't you try to take your sister's lottery money through court?" And Todd deleted the post within an hour. That's what I mean by social consequences. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. It was the slow closing of doors. The slow turning of faces. The removal of benefit of the doubt. 2 months after the hearing, I got a letter. Handwritten. From my mother. Not a text. Not a call. A letter. Like she wanted it to feel serious. It said, "I'm sorry if you felt hurt." It said, "You have to understand we were scared. It said, "A mother worries." And then the line that told me nothing had changed. "You should consider setting up something for the family. A trust. So people can stop talking." There it was. Not love. Reputation. And still, access. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. Not as a keepsake. As evidence. Just in case. Because Denise was right. People like that don't stop wanting what they think should be theirs. They just change tactics. A few weeks later, Todd called from a new number. I answered without thinking. "Hello?" His voice came through soft. Fake soft. "Hey sis." I didn't say anything. He sighed like he was tired. "I don't want to fight anymore." I waited. He said, "Mom's not doing good. She's stressed. She's depressed. And you know she's old. You gonna let her suffer because you're mad." I felt my chest tighten. Because that was the trap. He was using her age like a weapon. I said, "Todd, you tried to remove my rights." He snapped instantly. The softness vanished like it had never existed. "Oh my God, here we go. You're so dramatic. You're so damn exhausting. You always have been. That's why nobody likes you. You're a buzzkill. A Scrooge. You sit there judging everyone like you're perfect." I breathed in slowly. Then I said, "You're not getting money." He hissed, "Greedy pig." Then he hung up. I sat there with the phone in my hand and felt something settle. Not sadness. Finality. Because that call told me the truth. If I gave them $1, it wouldn't buy peace. It would buy a new leash. So I chose a different kind of life. I paid off my mortgage. Quietly. I set up a trust for myself. Not because I was fragile. Because it was smart. I donated to 2 causes that mattered to me. A women's shelter. A scholarship fund at the community college I started at when I was 19 and broke. And I made sure the people who helped me were taken care of. Denise, the bank manager who called me, the coworker who covered my shift when I had meetings, not with big flashy gifts, with gratitude that wasn't performative. Then I did one last thing. I updated my will, not to be petty, to be accurate, and I wrote a letter to go with it. It said, "If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. And if you expected to profit from me after trying to take my rights while I was alive, you never understood who I was. You trained me to be useful. You didn't expect me to become free." I didn't send it. I just filed it. Because the point wasn't to fight them forever. The point was to end it. The last time I saw my mother in person was at the grocery store, 3 aisles over from the cereal. She looked smaller. Not fragile, just smaller. She saw me and her face did this quick flicker, like she was deciding which mask to wear. Then she walked over. She said hi. I said hi. She swallowed. So, you're really doing this? I said, doing what? She pressed her lips together. Cutting us off. I looked at her and said, you tried to take my rights. Her eyes flashed. We tried to protect you. I nodded once. No, you tried to control me. Her face tightened. And then she leaned in and said, under her breath, you were always difficult. Always. You made everything hard, and now you're rich and you still can't be kind. I stared at her, and I realized something else. She didn't miss me. She missed the version of me who would fold. So I said, calmly, I hope you find peace. She scoffed, peace. Then she turned away like I'd insulted her, and that was it. No dramatic ending. No screaming match in a parking lot. Just a mother walking away because she couldn't control her daughter anymore. I claimed my winnings quietly. I built a life that didn't require begging anyone for love. And the strangest part is this. I didn't feel like I won because I got the money. I felt like I won because I didn't let them take my name, my sanity, my rights, because that's what the guardianship was really about. It wasn't just cash, it was power. It was permission to treat me like a child forever. And I'll tell you this. If you ever find yourself sitting in a room where people who claim to love you are calling you irresponsible, or useless with money, or a silly girl, or a greedy pig, listen carefully. Because the moment they start insulting you for protecting yourself is the moment you learn why you needed protection in the first place. Thank you for staying with me until the end. I'm going to hand you over to Julie now, who will walk you through a few of the key takeaways from this story.
Hi folks, Julie here. I want to talk about what really happened in that courtroom, because it was not a family disagreement. It was a control attempt, a rights grab. A grown woman was treated like property, and the word they kept hiding behind was concern. There are a few lessons in Rachel's story that matter, and I want you to hear them clearly. First, when someone says, we're just trying to help, but they're calling you a silly girl, irresponsible, useless with money, a greedy pig, a Scrooge, or they're trying to humiliate you in front of other people, that is not help. That is a leash. Help doesn't come with insults. Help doesn't come with threats. Help doesn't come with paperwork designed to remove your choices. Second, pay attention to how fast the mask drops when you say no. Rachel did not change. She didn't become cold. She didn't become greedy. She just stopped being available. And the moment she stopped being available, they rewrote her as unstable. That's what people do when they're used to obedience. They treat your boundary like a personal attack because they built their comfort on your compliance. And third, this is the part I want you to take with you. Facts beat manipulation. Quiet beats chaos. Receipts beat tears. Rachel didn't win because she yelled louder. She won because she documented. She locked things down. She let the court hear their own words. That is what procedural strength looks like. Calm doesn't mean weak. Calm is often the most dangerous thing to someone who's trying to control you. If you're watching this and you've lived a version of it, maybe not with lottery money, maybe not with a courtroom, but with family members who treat you like the emergency fund, and then punish you when you say no, I want you to remember this. You do not owe people access to you just because they share your last name. You do not have to prove you deserve basic respect, and you do not need to be nice to someone who is actively trying to take your rights, your peace, or your reputation. Rachel's story is a reminder that some people don't miss you. They miss what they could get from you. If that hit home for you, please like, share, and subscribe. And I really want you to comment too. Tell me if you've ever had someone in your own family try to control you with guilt, labels, or public embarrassment. Even if you just write, "Yep, I read them." And so do other women who need to know they're not the only one.